cold in here.
Once you fall in sleep. And the first thing that we're going to do in this session is the president-elects only. We're going to vote on accepting the membership dues number, which is $42 per member, has been for 2 or 3 years, and also the budget, which was distributed more than a month ago to every one of the PEs to consider for this year. So, Mike, do you have any comments, and our finance committee chair regarding the budget? Oh, yes, that's what he's saying. So do I hear a motion to approve the budget? Jack Lobby, Roy Shockey, second. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote then. All those in favor of approving the budget, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries, the budget is accepted. Thank you all. The budget is posted on the district website if you're curious about details, and did look at it when it was sent out. Pardon? It's all one, yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about public administration in this first section. One of the things that I've discovered in talking with a number of Rotarians is they really don't know how Rotary is organized from top to bottom. And top is the club, and the bottom is Rotary International in Evanston. Would you all agree? Okay, I have that in that direction. Number one, Rotarian. Technically, you're not a Rotarian. You're a member of a Rotary club because Rotary clubs were chartered by Rotary International. But I don't think anybody's going to quibble with you calling yourselves Rotarians. You're top notch, okay? There are 33,000 clubs that those 1.4 million, and this includes Rotaractors now. The number of Rotarians is being shown as 1.4 million Rotarians. That number has for years has been 1.2. The last council of legislation approved raising Rotary clubs to the same level as Rotary clubs. And there were 200,000 Rotaract members. So that's how you get 1.4 million. Those 33,000 clubs, their presidents serve a 1-year term. Those clubs are then assigned by Rotary International into districts. We are District 5830. There are 530 plus districts in the world. The district governors serve a 1-year term. Those districts then are grouped into zones. There are 34 zones. They are paired together. The image on the right, we are a member of Zone 31, and we are paired with Zone 30. That makes up our zone, so to speak. The incoming director from that zone, and that's how they choose 17 directors that are on the Rotary International Board, is her first name is Beth, and I forgot her last name. Stubbs, that's right. And she's from Zone 30. She'll serve a 2-year term, and then she will be followed by someone who is selected as director from Zone 31. And then Rotary International itself, president serves a 1-year term. The vice president, secretary, and treasurer are selected from the members of the board. And the secretariat, which is the administrative wing, is led by a general secretary who is hired by the Rotary International Board. Then Rotary International created the Rotary Foundation. They are two separate entities. But Rotary International Board appoints the 12 trustees that make up the Board of Trustees of the foundation. The chair is selected by the Rotary International Board of Directors. Secretariat provides administrative support so that you understand the structure of Rotary International Rotary Foundation. Rotary International started in 1905. Its primary responsibility is community service. Programs that are operated through Rotary International, RILA, Interact, Rotaract, the exchanges, the long and short-term youth exchanges, and the friendship exchanges. It's a 501c4 tax-exempt organization. Because there's no charitable donation related to Rotary International, therefore, Rotarians, family members, children can participate in RILA, and Interact, and Rotaract, and long-term exchanges. The Rotary Foundation is a 501c3, started in 1917. A C3 is a charitable tax-exempt organization. That means any monies that you donate to that organization are tax deductible. Therefore, some of the programs in 1985, we started Polio Plus. And then in 2013, they created a new grant system so that there are district grants. Those are the grants that from which you receive club project grant awards. And then global grants, either scholarship, vocational training teams, and other humanitarian projects. That's a 501c3. Talk about constitutional documents. A lot of clubs, my club included, when I was club president, I asked to see the Constitution and the bylaws, and everybody went, huh? Huh? I said, well, where are they? Huh? It's important to know what those documents are. There's the Rotary International Constitution and bylaws. There's the Rotary Foundation bylaws. There is the standard Rotary Club Constitution. That Constitution is required, word for word, to be followed by your club. There's also a recommended Rotary Club bylaws that goes with that. The club can modify that any way they want, just as long as it doesn't conflict with any of the other constitutional documents. Let's go back to the Constitution. Actually, all of these documents get updated every 3 years. So we're 2 years into the most recent club constitution. How many have checked your club constitution? Pretty good battery. Okay. And a little later, we'll show you where you can download it for the district website, which is much easier to find than finding it on the Rotary International website. Every 3 years, there's a meeting of one representative from each of the districts in the world at what's called the Council of Legislation. And they consider changes to these constitutional documents. So that's why every 3 years, your club constitution is going to change. So it's important. In fact, I think one of the citation items this next year is that you reviewed your club constitution and bylaws. That ought to be an easy one to get out of the 13 that you need to make. I'm sorry? Okay. Talk a little bit about club organization. In those constitution and bylaws, they pretty much direct you to be organized in the following manner. You see the officers that are there: president, immediate past president, president-elect, secretary, treasurer, sergeant. You also have 5 committees. that should be your directors, the club administration, membership, service projects, Rotary Foundation, and public image. And then your board of directors can be all of the above or can be defined by your bylaws. Just the two alternatives you could see for your club. Both of them are laid out in those major committees, but the top bracket shows a large club's organization with all of the subcommittees that you might find under each of those classifications. You've got various management tools available to you. You've got at the Rotary International website, you've got My Rotary and Rotary Club Central. You can get Rotary reports and some general information there. You can establish your club goals and report on them. And Shirley Penix Evans will be working with our secretary treasurers in that arena in the next session. We also have Club Run, which comes in two versions. One is that the clubs can purchase a subscription, but the other one is a district version, which the district pays a premium for and utilizes. Both of them feed into the same database. And now that database will populate in Rotary International's database. So whether you're coming in to do your member data through the district version or through your club version, that's where you want to enter both your membership data and your officer data, because it will populate automatically up to Rotary International. Kill two birds with one stone. A lot of clubs are using QuickBooks. The district, the zones, several of the clubs use QuickBooks Online, larger clubs, so that multiple people have access to the QuickBooks records. But you need to have good financial reporting. And you can also use Club Runner for your financial document retention. In other words, you can attach documents to each one of the transactions. If you ever got audited by the IRS, you just walk them through QuickBooks, and if you've done a good job, they'll say, all right, we're out of here. It's through Intuit. Intuit is the company. You just have to go through Intuit and subscribe to it. Or you can go down to Best Buy or any of the computer stores and they have the desktop version. No, but so many of the clubs are using it that I included here. There are other software packages you could use. If you're a small enough club, you could use a Big Chief tablet. Okay, but some clubs use Excel spreadsheets. So I'm just saying that this is a good way to be able to allow several people to access financial information and for you to be able to do your document retention. Yes.
With regard to going down to Best Buy, the stores to buy the Intuit version, is the club expected to pay taxes on it?
We'll talk about that in just a minute, Jack. Okay? I'm gonna sit down. I had back surgery in December and I'm not quite back up to par yet, so you'll have to excuse me. I could sit up here on the stage, but that feels odd to me. Like I'm not fine. Okay, Mike?
Members of our community
We'll kind of touch on that in a minute too, Mike, okay?
Jumping.
And finally, I'll need to jump to the end. Say, oh, it's- I worry that the finance need to be observed.
They don't know you very well, do they?
Well, plenty of time, unfortunately for you all. You probably ought to standardize around one type of office product. I don't care if it's a free product or Office 365 is a subscription that can allow 5 subscribers for like $90 a year, and it automatically updated as you go. But it just makes it so much easier when you're transferring files back and forth if they're all developed basically under the same software package. So we're going to talk about finances now. And this is kind of an esoteric area, but I think a lot of secretary treasurers, but also president-elects need to be aware that there's actually a different way of reporting for nonprofit organizations than there is for for-profit organizations. You know, the focus of reporting for a for-profit is to see how resources are being used to generate a profit. Whereas a not-for-profit entity, the focus is, whereas the resources that were given to it used according to the instructions for its use. It's not profit oriented, it's resource oriented. And there's several different classifications of those resources. Unrestricted, in other words, the donor or whoever contributed the money said, use it for whatever you want. Our dues are like that. We use it for whatever we need as far as operating expenses. RILA, we keep track of, it's still an unrestricted contribution because it's a service fee, so to speak, for attending RILA. We do keep any foundation contributions separate. Those would be considered as restricted. And then endowment, and that's where the principal, in other words, the donation is never spent, but the income is used as designated by the donor. There's those 3 particular type of classifications. Minimum reports to the board. You should be receiving a statement of financial position by fund. This is like the balance sheet in a for-profit entity. Your statement of activities by fund is like the income statement on a for-profit organization. And then you want to be getting your bank reconciliations, at least the president-elect. And if you have a controller managing your accounting, your treasurer should be getting the bank account reconciliations. Frequency of reporting. Financial statements should be provided to the board at least monthly at each board meeting. That's part of the transparency that Mike was referring to, that everybody's seeing what's going on with the finances in the club. And then annually, and this is required by the bylaws, by the Constitution, the club members at least annually have to be provided a copy of the financial statements so they understand what's been done during the year. The best way to do that is to post them on your webpage, in my opinion. That way, not only your club members, but even the general public can see what you're doing with the resources. Does that surprise anybody? Why? Somebody said yes. Why is that, Holly?
Well, I just, part of me, I'm a little terrified of putting all of our financials out on the web. I mean, that kind of makes me very nervous. I mean, not that we have anything to hide, we're very above board on everything, but it's just, okay, what does that mean to us overall if we do that?
You don't have to give great detail. Give a summary, but the next thing you're going to find out is that your 990 tax return is based on those numbers, and it's required to be made available to the public. So those numbers are going to be out there one way or the other. Okay? I just think it's unless you've got something to hide, throw them out there. You know, it's, how do I say it? It's
So,
it's hard to defend not doing something. Why are you not publishing your financial statement? What are you guys hiding? You know, people can make it into something, but if you've got it out there, you know, they may question it, but you're being upfront with it. Okay, that's just my opinion. You don't have to put your financial statements out there, but I think for transparency purposes, put something out there, okay? Dues. President-elects, secretaries, secretary treasurers, whatever your occupation might be, we have a big problem with invoices every year. And who gets them, why they get them, when they get them. And so I'm going to cover that now. Rotary International sends semi-annual invoices. In other words, you'll get a July invoice that's based on your member count at June 30th. So clean up your membership records in June, so you're not paying for international dues for someone who's no longer a member. You cannot change that invoice. Number of years ago, you could go in and scratch out people and say, no, they're not a member anymore. They'd let you change the invoice. They will not do that anymore. Same is true with January invoice. It's going to be based on the member count as of December 31st. And as I said, you cannot change the member count or invoice amount. Yes,
getting,
yes. When you're incoming, they don't when you're outgoing. They're just not on they're just not on the list for, if you've cleaned up your list. Okay? I mean, you've already paid for them for the prior period. They're not going to give you a refund in January for somebody that left in December, because that dues was already paid in July. Okay? Your Rotary District 5830 dues, we send a annual invoice one time a year. You'll receive it in July, and it's based upon the previous December 31st member count. And the reason we do that, and that's the RI January invoice member count. Reason we do that is typically we need to get the dues out at the start of the year, so the district has funds to pay for district governor expenses, DGE expenses, other activities that are in July and August and September. So we can't wait on the member count. In the long run, it's not gonna make any difference in the total dues that your club's gonna pay over time. We send it to the president-elect. We do not send it to the secretary, we do not send it to the treasurer. So you got secretary treasurers, you need to keep, be aware and ask your president-elect if you would receive the invoice yet. The reason we send it to the president-elect is that's the only officer that we know their email address for all of the clubs. A lot of the clubs haven't put any of their officers in for the next year, including their club and secretary. Shirley will talk about that a little bit later. It's a real problem. You're supposed to elect your incoming officers and directors back in December and report them to Rotary International in January. As of right now, a little less than half the clubs have not reported anybody but their president-elect. So, if your club's that club, get on the stick. It's usually right at the first of July, first week in July. Okay. Some additional policies and procedures you probably ought to have in place. Some of these you're going to have in place to be able to have a club project plan. You need to have a data retention and destruction policy. You might have a conflict of interest policy, and you might have a whistleblower policy. Those are questions that are on the 990. Do you have those? They're not required, but I would suggest that you seriously consider those as part of your documents. Any questions on that area? Yes, sir.
The state current finance chair will not reimburse it, the president.
Okay. Sure thing. It's been the district's policy to reimburse the registration fee, the early registration fee for any president-elect that attended Lone Star Pets or any other pets. They could go to Mid-South Pets, Muddy Water Pets. There's a handful that are within comfortable distance. This year, it may have been my fault, the amount that was refunded was $390. But the early registration fee was actually $425. And so instead of writing another $30 check to whatever it was, 22 or 23 clubs, we've put a $30 credit on your account that you will use against your invoice in July. We just didn't see for $30 writing a whole bunch more checks. So you've already got a $30 credit against the invoice that you'll receive in July. Understood? Thank you, Mike, for reminding me. Yes, I'll show you where in just a little bit, okay? There isn't one on the whistleblower policy. I don't think there's one on the conflict of interest policy. But you can do a search on the internet and find these things all over. Federal taxes and regulations. Clubs are 501c4 tax exempt organizations. I'm not talking about your foundations. Those are 501c3s. I suspect there's only about 10 clubs in the district that have foundations. First of all, your club has to have an employer identification number. And once your club is chartered, a new club is automatically a 501c4 under the Rotary International Group Code 503. When you fill out your first 990, there's a box that they want to know if you're covered by a 503. Here's the tricky thing. You can lose that exemption if your entity does not file a 990 at least once every 3 years. If you lose that exemption, you have to reapply for it, and it will cost you a minimum of $600 to get that exemption. My recommendation is every year your club files one form of the 990s. We've had 4 clubs lose their exemptions. One's gotten theirs back. I don't know about the other 3. Why does that happen? Because somebody says, oh, we don't have to file it but once every 3 years. But then 2 years of secretary treasurers and presidents went through the mill and they forgot all about it. They didn't tell the incoming president or incoming secretary or treasurer that, hey, this is the year we need to file a 990. My recommendation is to file it every year. Half of the clubs in this district, at least, only have to file when it's 990 in. I'll cover that in just a moment. So, a 990 in is basically you go online and you answer 5 questions. They say it takes you 15 minutes, it takes me 5. Of course, I'm a retired CPA and used to computers, forms, and everything else, but you can figure it out. I mean, the IRS figured it out somehow. So, when can you file which type of return? If your gross revenues are 50,000 or less, you can file a 990 in. That's the online postcard return. I don't know why they bothered with that postcard word. It's a 990 in. What does gross revenue mean? Gross revenue means every dollar of revenue before any deduction. If you're netting your lunch revenue against the cost of that lunch and calling that revenue, gross revenue, that's wrong. The gross revenue is what you collected for that lunch. Can't net any expense against any revenue to come up with this $50,000 number. So some people will take their bank statements, add up all their deposits and say, oh, it's less than 50,000. We file 999. When in fact, if you went back and looked at the gross revenues, it was probably 75,000. And they should file then a 990 EZ. 990 EZ is for any tax exempt organization that files or has gross revenue less than 200,000. And then if you got more than 200,000, you're going to have to file a big boy. Now, to be honest, once you've been through a 990 return, most of it's the same the next year. And the 990 is where you're going to run into a lot of questions about, are you doing this, are you doing that? I'd almost say file a 990, get it over with, and then when you're filing it, put it on your website. That's how you make the public aware. And if they see that you're filing you've got a data retention plan, that you got a whistleblower plan, you got all these things that a nonprofit should have, you're promoting the ethics of your organization. So, but these are the minimum requirements right here.
John, get an email.
In fact, you have to file your 990s now online. There is a software provider. I have to look it up. I've used it for 4 or 5 years now for zone tax returns, district tax returns, or club tax returns. If your gross revenues are not over a certain amount, it's free. If it's over a certain amount, it's $35. Now, and it's pretty straightforward, and they do a lot of cross-checking. I thought I was good at doing these 990s. First time I went through, they tore my butt up, saying, you didn't have this, you don't have that, and this doesn't match with that. So I think they're a top notch. It's a nonprofit organization that's trying to make it useful for most nonprofit organizations. There's a lot of tax exempt organizations that are really pretty small. But they can't file a 990. They have to file a 990. And so this organization has come in and tried to make the cost of filing an effective tax return at a reasonable price. I'll get that in the break, I hope. I'm getting older and things kind of slip into mind sometimes. Apologize. Yes, sir.
See that local clubs receive donations. Receive education. We have that.
We do not have it. We just never created one. In some respects, my personal opinion is that sometimes a foundation that's open to a number of different organizations, it starts to get to be a problem, just politically. My recommendation is support the Rotary Foundation, number one. There are, I think, probably 10 clubs in our district that have a foundation. Most of those are the larger clubs. I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, we don't have one. We've never really discussed it that I'm aware of. We have considered incorporating the district and then seeking a 501c3 exemption, because one of the 501c3 exempt classifications is basically training. What's the district doing mostly? District training assembly.
But it looks
Absolutely. And you $600 minimum just to get the 501c4. It's even more extensive to get the 501c3 because it's going to be reviewed to see, in fact, whether the activities fall under the charitable designation. So you basically, each club has to decide themselves what they want to do with it. Well, is there kind of a, how do y'all feel about that? Anybody have a comment about that?
I don't want the headache.
Well,
I'll let
Jeff
Jeff.
Club has a foundation and it's been a headache sometimes. It's, dues might have to go to cover the administrative costs and things. Uh, Anybody else? Okay, on then. But what I want you to take out of this is file your 990 every year, period. Even if you get audited, you won't lose your exemption. But if you don't file it in 3 years, you lose your exemption. It's automatic. Texas taxes and regulations. Anybody here from Oklahoma? Anybody here from Texarkana, Wilbur Smith? I don't know a damn thing about Oklahoma or Arkansas laws. Okay? This is Texas. Talk about sales taxes first, and there's a question from over there, one of the CPAs about sales taxes. Maybe it was closer in here. Tax exempt organizations are exempt from paying sales taxes. But they must file Form AB 205, application for exemption, charitable organizations. This is a state form, you can download it, to receive the exemption. In other words, if you haven't filed and received this exemption from the state, you'll get a letter saying you're exempt, then you're got to collect sales taxes on your sales. Then, once you are exempt, you have to provide each seller with Form 01-339, Texas Sales and Use Tax Exemption Certificate. And that basically just tells the seller who you are and why you're exempt from them charging you sales tax. Now, that's paying sales taxes. What about collecting the sales taxes? You are exempt from collecting sales taxes at 2 one-day fundraising events each year. So if you're got a concession stand and you operate it 52 weeks a year, you're going to have to collect sales taxes on 50 of those weekly openings. You must have a sales tax permit, so again, you're going to have to file with the state and get that. And once you've collected the sales taxes, if you collect sales taxes, then you're going to have to file a Texas sales and use tax return, at least annually. And that's dependent on how much sales taxes you collect. Any other observations on sales tax from the folks in the background there? Yes, sir.
Betting.
Get through the daisies. You really need to look at what you're doing there. If, like I hear Red River Radio, they give you a coffee cup for a donation of $100 or something like that. My guess is they're not paying sales tax on that cup. My guess. But because it's, what do they call it, de minimis? In other words, it's such a small amount that it's in relationship to the donations that they just don't look at. Would you agree with that, Mike? Jack?
I agree with you, John.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm sorry? That's good. Must have stopped by Linda on the way in. Ryan, did you have a question? Okay. A special tax situation. Number one, raffles are gambling in Texas,
Oh, lucky number you're on.
okay? But there is an out. Rotary Club and a Rotary district can hold no more than 2 raffles per calendar year per club or district. They can hold only 1 raffle at a time. In other words, you can't have 2 running at the same time.
How many items can you have in that raffle?
50, 100, I don't know.
No.
It's 1 raffle.
Okay, that's what I was
One
saying.
raffle.
3 shotguns, it's not 3 raffles. Okay, good.
Function. And here is where I think a lot of clubs that are running raffles are tripping over themselves. Raffle tickets must not be advertised statewide or through paid advertisements. The promotion can only be in their general area. So if you're a club in District 5830, I would think your general area is District 5830. Okay? Now, they might say Amherst, way up there in the corner, their general area may include some clubs. Can't think what the district number is up there over the mountains. Would be considered their general area. So how many of you are advertising the raffles on Facebook or your webpage? Where is that motion going? I don't think you can promote a raffle in Texas. Again, I'm talking Texas regulations. I don't think you can promote a raffle through the internet because you have no control where that's going. Yes.
It says there are 2 raffles per calendar year per club or district. That means 2 raffles for the full district.
No, just each entity. The district can only have 2 during the year. Each club can only have 2 during the year. Okay? So, trying to think.
Got a district raffle going right now.
Right. We used to, our club used to have 2 fundraising activities that were 2 days long, and each one of them had concessions. One of the reasons that we had a foundation is we ran one of the concessions through the foundation for 2 days, and we ran the other one through the club for 2 days. We ended up basically getting utilization of 4 days of concessions for your sales tax exemption. So there's things you can do. It's just whether you want to do the complex things to get them done that way. Is it beneficial to do that? Administration, no one can be compensated directly or indirectly for organizing or conducting a raffle or for selling raffle tickets. Prizes. You cannot use cash or CDs, certificates of deposit. I know they're kind of out of style, except in the last couple of weeks. Nor can any of these prizes exceed $50,000 in value. Guys, so if you're one of your prizes is a Suburban, you better buy the stripped down version.
10 years old.
However, store gift cards are allowed as prizes. And you would say, well, what's the difference in that and cash? Cash you can spend anywhere. These gift cards you have to spend in a location. I'm sorry? Yes. What do they call that?
50/50.
50/50, yeah. You look at it that way.
Hey, the stars do it all the time. My husband won. The stars. My husband won.
I'll leave that one alone to you. I guess you're being transparent. You said, well, the sheriff was there. He didn't say anything. I said he doesn't have license to practice taxes either. Okay, the prizes to be offered must be in the organization's possession for ownership, or a surety bond be obtained from the bond company, and the county clerk's office asked to keep it on file until the prize is awarded. So let's talk about that suburban. Let's talk about guns. Rotary's position on guns is that the Rotary Club, even if they're raffling off a gun, the gun is never owned by the Rotary Club. And part of that is the transfer of title. There has to be a what do they call it, some type of search. See if there's any reason why that person is not supposed to be able to buy a gun. Guys, so I would think that federal law would circumvent that particular situation. Anybody had any issues with this? Ticket disclosures on your ticket. Name of the organization, address of the organization, or a named officer of the organization. Don't let them put the name of an officer in the organization. Just give an address. You don't want them knocking at your door because they didn't win. General description of each prize having a value of more than $10 to be awarded in the raffle. Can be kind of hard to put 50 raffle prices on there if they're more than $10 a piece. That'd be an awful big ticket. Date in which the raffle prize or prizes will be awarded. Those 5 things need to be on your raffle ticket. Internal Revenue Services. If the award is large enough, well, the prize is number 1, are all considered taxable income. You may be able to deduct the cost of purchasing the raffle ticket from that prize to determine your taxable income. But usually you've won $1,000 and you've paid $100 for the ticket. So you're looking at $900 of taxable income. Your club may have to issue a W-2G and withhold taxes on backup withholding if the prize is above $5,000. Don't give away the prize before you've collected that withholding and gotten a W-9, or they'll disappear on you, and you're in trouble with the IRS. Auctions and silent auctions by 501c3. Remember, 501c4, nothing that you pay to a 501c4 is deductible as a charitable deduction. Only to 501c3, so that's why I make this emphasis here. Generally, there's no consequences to the winner. You basically established the fair market value of that prize or item that you just purchased. And generally, the contributor of the item to the auction can only deduct their basis in the item as a charitable donation. So, if you're giving away Aunt Jenny's cedar chest that she gave you, and it was probably worth $10 when you got it, that's all you're going to be able to justify as deducting it. But you better, in that case, you better be darn sure you've got documentation that it was valued at $10 when you got it. All right, let's see if there's anything else on this. There's fundraising can raise a lot of prickly issues. You just need to be aware of it and think about what you're doing there. So, I've got 3 minutes to cover insurance. Y'all have officers and directors insurance and liability insurance through the dues that you pay to Rotary International. One of the things that it excludes coverage is bodily injury or property damage caused by, in whole or in part, alcoholic beverages sold, served, or furnished while any liquor license is required and is not in effect. Your club does that, and somebody gets in a wreck, you're in deep trouble. Rotary International not defend you. Your insurer and contract information is Arthur G. Gallagher Company. There's the contact information. There's not much that you have to worry about doing as far as your insurance. But if you have a big event, you need to get a certificate of insurance normally to provide the event facility owner that you actually have coverage. And if there's any potential claim, go ahead and report it to Gallagher immediately. Don't wait to see if it's, what's the proper term, lawyers?
Litigious?
Claim is filed. Don't wait. Get right with it. Let Gallagher know, hey, so-and-so had trouble with a rectal in our polio. And other folks are really mad about it. Let them know right then. Here's your certificate of liability insurance. Basically, you can download that off the internet from Gallagher, and you fill that in, or actually you fill it in online and then print it, and you give it to your event facility owner, whoever's requiring a certificate of insurance. 30-second break, but we're so close to the end, I gotta go on here. Real quick, I'm gonna cover this lightly because Shirley is gonna cover this. Importance of updated member and officer data. You need to get to know who your members are. How you can update them with communication information, so on and so forth. In Club Runner versions, if you're paying a subscription for your club, then you're going in through the club version. If you're using Club Runner, but you haven't paid a subscription, the way you access it is 5830.org website and use it there. Both versions allow for syncing member data to Rotary International database. It's not backwards thinking. In other words, if you go to Rotary International and change their database, it does not back into Club Runner. Make your entries in Club Runner, and then you won't have to do it once. Here are the clubs that have the club version. By the way, I'm going to print this out in PDF format and email it to each of you all so that you have a copy of this. Okay. Here we go, forms. This is the website for the district. On the top half, forms and info, and you get this page here. And you might notice. Here's the documents, current ones. It's all right here. You can download straight from there. You don't have to worry about going to Rotary International. By golly, just go into Club Runner and poke around. You're not going to break it. I know 100 people said, "Oh, I'm afraid to get into anything because I might mess it up." Yeah, you're going to mess it up. It just ain't going to happen. Some Rotary meetings that occur in the club. You got your membership. Usually weekly, you got your boards, usually monthly. Club assemblies. Club assemblies are at least once a year to approve your officer slate. But then you also have club member training and other club business. Those are club assemblies. Those are when guests can be invited to leave. District, you've got president-elect's training, you got district training assembly, membership foundation seminar. We haven't had that in a couple of years. Probably going to stir it up again. Foundation banquet. By the way, pets, this next year, you'll have an option to go to Lone Star Pets or what the district is calling local pets. And one is based on adult learning and talking about a number of activities that clubs can participate in, but the other is more of a training event, similar to what we're doing right here. Goes into much more depth of the things that you're responsible for as president. District 4-way speech contest, district conference, district installation offers. Zone. Zone puts on success seminars that the district officers and district committee chairs can go for training in the summer. GATS, GNT, yes, those are governor training. Karen went there, Jeff's going there, Mike went there, all PDGs went to this. No, I'm sorry. Thank you, Karen. They're getting tired of me too. And then your Rotary International Convention. That's usually in June, once a year. Contact information, it'll be in your PDF. This is international. These are the two guys at Club and District Support. Lean on them. They are a world of help and information. They are there. Use them. Use them. Any questions or comments? Yes, I will email the PDF version of this next week. All right, thank you.
Break time, y'all get 15 minutes and then get to your next breakout session.